Diet and exercise are necessary tools when it comes to losing weight and maintaining overall wellness, but sometimes even those aren't enough. Additional weight in your midsection could be due to your hormone levels. And here to tell us more about it is fitness coach John Romanello. John, thanks so much for joining us.
It's my pleasure to be here.
So tell us how our hormones play a role in our weight.
Well, hormones are very important. They actually affect just about every metabolic process in the body, and that includes whether or not you gain muscle weight, whether or not you lose fat, and also not only if you gain fat, but where you gain it. If you look in the mirror, we all store fat, but we don't all store it in the same places. So we'll have something called regional fat storage, and this is due to our particular hormonal environment. People will store fat in their belly, people will store more fat in their love handles, and people will store fat in their lower body, particularly the hips and thighs in women. And each of those will have a corresponding hormone.
Well, let's talk about each one then. Let's start with the belly. If you tend to, keep all your weight in your belly, which hormone could be affecting that?
That would be indicative of something called cortisol. Now, you've probably heard of that. It's really called a stress hormone in the media. So cortisol, if your levels of cortisol are higher, you're going to store more belly fat. And what you need to do there is start to reduce that hormone. If it's a stress hormone, the first thing we would do is begin to reduce stress.
Okay.
Getting more sleep is obviously a good place to start. De-stressing by meditation, just defriending someone on Facebook that's driving you crazy. We all have that
toxic
person.
friends.
Yeah, that's a toxic environment and toxic habits as well.
Now, what about those people who tend to, store all their weight in their love handles? A lot of guys, but women as well. What hormone could be doing that?
That's insulin, actually. Now, everyone knows about insulin. It's the reason that people get diabetes. And what you have, if you're storing a lot of fat in your love handles, you have bad insulin management. It means your body doesn't handle insulin the right way. The reason for that is people would eat a lot of high glycemic, quick digesting carbs, so your blood sugar and insulin go up, and then they crash, and then they go up, and then they crash. And this happens a lot. And what happens is that your body becomes less and less efficient at processing insulin. So in order to offset that, there's a couple of things we need to do. The first one are dietary changes. Obviously, reducing junk foods, potato chips, things like that, even white breads would be the best thing. The easiest way to sort of reset your insulin sensitivity is simply to reduce carbohydrate intake very drastically for as little as 2 weeks, and then you're going to kind of reset, again, that insulin management hormone, and you'll begin to lose fat in your belly. And again, there are exercises that we can do, specific types of exercises that will make you more insulin sensitive and start to offset that insulin resistance, which will allow you in turn to lose fat all over, but particularly in those tricky love handles.
Fantastic, because it is so hard to lose the weight from the middle area, isn't it? Now, then there are people who do carry a lot of their weight in their hips and their thighs. And what's causing that?
That would be estrogen, which we talked about earlier. Now, we really don't have to look any further than to look at a typical man versus a typical woman and where they store fat. Women, in general, tend to store a lot of fat in the lower body because they have much higher levels of estrogen. So estrogen is good, and this is what makes you a woman, and it has to do with menstruation, but too much estrogen can be bad, even in women. And the reason that this happens, is because of processed soy foods and things that increase estrogen, even beer. There are certain plant compounds, which are called phytoestrogens, which are present in soy and in hops, which is one of the main ingredients in beer, and these bind to estrogen receptors in our own body. And when that happens, our estrogen levels go.
Let's get to some of these exercises.
All right, you ready
that
to
you
go?
recommend. I'm
Feeling good?
ready to go. Feeling good.
Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to offset cortisol, that belly fat hormone, all right? So what we want to do is create growth hormone. Now, this is something that happens when you create a substance called lactic acid. Now, you've done squats before.
I've done
them
squats.
like this, okay? We're going to do a slow squat, and I'm going to demonstrate real quick. You're going to put your arms out like this. All right, and now we're going to go down quickly and then come up very slowly over a period of 5 seconds. We're just going to do 3, okay?
Watch you do it first.
Slow. 5,
Okay.
4, 3, 2, 1. Good again. Slower, slower, slow.
Slower coming up.
Slower coming up, and the reason for that is the lifting phase of any movement. That's perfect.
It's the
Good, just
hardest
like that. The lifting phase is what produces lactic acid. The lifting or the concentric phase, the hard part of any movement, just a little bit slower, is what produces lactic acid, and that in turn will help you produce growth hormone, and that will offset the cortisol. So even though you're working your legs right now, in time that will help you lose belly fat. That's
Excellent.
perfect.
All right, like it.
Excellent. So now we're going to move on to insulin.
Insulin, okay.
I'm going to give you these. Now you've done lunges.
Yes.
Okay, so I'm going to have you do them right here. Let's step
Okay.
forward on the mat.
Okay.
So We're going to do a reverse lunge, body nice and tall, moving back and then up. Excellent. And the reason that we're working this particular exercise is it involves a lot of muscles. You're working your hamstrings, your glutes, your quads, and when you work a lot of muscles all at once, you begin to produce a hormone called IGF-1, insulin-like growth factor. This will start to offset some of the insulin imbalances, and to make this even more effective, you can throw in a bicep curl as you do it.
Down, when I go down?
Exactly.
Okay.
Combination exercise. The more muscles you can work at once, the better that you're going to be in terms of insulin sensitivity.
Yeah, so I've got all my big muscles working at once right now, right?
Exactly, right. So now you're working again, glutes, quads, calves, hamstrings, and even your biceps now. That's perfect.
Great.
Okay, we're going to move on.
Love it. All right.
Finally, we're going to work on estrogen.
Okay.
When we look at training to manage estrogen, we're going to look at something called training density, and that's the amount of work that you do in any given time frame. So if you normally do 10 push-ups in, let's say, 10 seconds, your goal is simply to do 10 push-ups in 9 seconds, and then 10 push-ups in 8 seconds. You're going to do the same amount of work, simply in less time, and that's called overreaching, okay? So,
give it a shot.
All right, I'm going to time you.
Okay. You're going to time me.
I'm going to say, we'll just do 5 push-ups,
Okay.
and I'm going to count to 5.
Okay.
1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi, 4 Mississippi, 5 Mississippi. Perfect. Okay, now you're going to do it again, all right? And you're
Try
going
to do
just
it
do as
faster?
many as you can in that same time frame.
Okay, all right.
Go. 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi, 4 Mississippi, 5 Mississippi. Good, you got 6 that time.
I got one
Okay,
extra.
so it's a little bit, that's great though, that's a good
One
start.
extra setup. All right, thank you so much, John Roman. This was awesome.
It's
Thank
my
you
pleasure.
So much.
Thank you so much for having me.
Love those exercises. And you can check these out by, do you have a website?
All of this can be found at healthguru.com. I'm a fitness coach over there, so just www.healthguru.com.
Fantastic. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
And you can follow us, ABC News Now, on Facebook and Twitter. Just search ABC News.